Hello and welcome to Landlord Voice, the podcast of the Scottish Association of Landlords, bringing to you the news and views of what's happening in Scotland's private rented sector. My name's John Blackwood and I'm the Chief Executive of SAL, and joining me today, as always in our podcast, is our co-host, and that's Alan Grant. And welcome back, Alan.
Thanks, John. Lovely to be back in the studio with you. We've got another great episode planned for our viewers and listeners today. We've got some exciting news about the upcoming election that we're going to be sharing with everybody. And we're the next in our series of interviews. John, who will we be talking with today?
Well, as you know, every episode we try and bring a new person to the podcast to share their views and understanding of how they can support landlords here in Scotland. So very much the theme today is about insurance, and actually we all know we need to have insurance, of course, and there's a wide range of providers out there. But importantly, if we do come to make a claim, how do we manage that process? How does that work? And what experts are out there that can support us and guide us through that process? So I'm delighted to say that we've got a guest from Aspray, which is a company that specialises in this sector, and we'll be speaking to Nigel Wardle on that subject. So more of that to come in a few minutes.
Brilliant. But before we do, we spoke about some exciting news about the election coming up. Now, the Scottish parliamentary elections are taking place on May the 7th. Housing, as ever, is set to be one of the big issues of what remains of the campaign. This is in the context, of course, of the cost of living crisis, the cost of housing, the housing emergency that the Scottish Government has declared, and I'm sure everybody in the housing sector and everyone connected with the housing sector will be looking for and be combing through the manifestos of all the different parties, and we as SAL will be doing that. And SAL, I'm sure SAL members can look forward to an update and a comparison for what all the different parties are saying about housing, and we'll get that over to them. There's a lot of information. It's really important that we stay ahead of what's going on, and to that effect, we have something that we can, I think, announce officially today.
Sure.
And that is that SAL is putting together, or has put together rather, a manifesto. We're not standing for election. You won't see Scottish Association of Landlords on your ballot paper, but we've put together a document that sets out what we would like to see and what the private rented sector would like to see from the next Scottish Government. So, John, I don't know if you'd like to maybe talk to a few points that are in there. It's quite a lengthy document, but if we can talk to just a few points that are in there that you think the viewers...
Yeah, exactly. As you say, there's a lot of information out there and coming out. Literally, the point of recording this podcast, the parties are still announcing their manifestos, so they're just literally being dropped as we speak. So part of our work is obviously analysing all of them to see that, but what does this mean for private landlords in Scotland? And quite frankly, who should we be voting for as landlords? So yes, let's decipher that information. Let's interrogate that as much as we can to understand what it means for us in the private rented sector. But I think it's an important thing to take on board with regards to just now. We'll get the canvassers coming around our doors, and we'll be perhaps speaking to the candidates themselves. And I think we as landlords need to be saying to them, what are you doing for us as private landlords? What are you doing for the private rented sector in Scotland? And hopefully getting their perspective as to, do they value us? Politicians are always quick to say, oh yes, we really value you as landlords and we need to see a vibrant private rented sector. Well, how's that going to work? And how does your party think they're going to deliver on that if you as the candidate or your party was going to be elected? So let's put them in the spot. That's the whole point of this canvassing and the election process. It's for us to really say to those elected parties and elected members, listen, this is what we want you to be doing and how you're going to deliver for us. And that helps us, of course, decide who we vote for.
If we can sort of drill down a little bit into the detail of what SAL is calling on the next Scottish Government to do.
Yeah.
We've got, again, there's 10 points here in the manifesto. Again, we're not going to go through them all, but if you may pull out one or two key points.
Exactly. So a couple there. So as Alan says, that it's important for us to be thinking about our asks effectively of whoever is going to be in power, and we, everybody's suspecting that we will still have an SNP government, probably as a minority government, but the mix within Parliament is going to be different, and that's the interesting thing with the Scottish Parliament, is that it's very much about the overall parliamentary composition as to the direction of policy travel, not just who's in power, but effectively who's sitting there in Parliament. So there's a lot up for grabs, and we know it will be different in the next parliamentary term, which is going to be interesting for everybody. But for us as Sal, it's about us saying, okay, regardless of who's there, we know it will be different, but the important thing is this is what we want you to be focusing on and thinking about. So we've come up with 10 asks, and they will be available in our website. You can go and have a look there. Just to draw out a couple of them is, we're really saying now is the time that we need a clear strategy for the private rented sector. So we want parties in the Scottish Parliament to be clearly setting out their stall, saying to us, this is the private rented sector we want to see going forward. This is who we feel should be operating within it. This is what it should be doing, how it should be delivering, and importantly, perhaps even what size should that be. People talk about landlords leaving the sector all the time. We know that's happening. Are politicians worried about that? Or actually, do they think that's a good idea? We need them really to tell us very clearly through a strategy, how do they feel the private rented sector should operate in Scotland, and who should be operating within it? So that's a number one key aspect. Another one is about the first tier tribunal. So we've got huge concerns about how long those cases are taking to go through the tribunal system. That's an issue for us as landlords. It's an issue for tenants too. So does that need more resourcing? How can we look at that overall system to make sure it works as intended to expedite justice? It's not happening. We want to see that happen. So how can we ensure that that delivers for the people of Scotland? So there are two major things. Energy efficiency is another big one. We know we will have more legislation about that in the course of the new Parliament. But landlords and the sector needs time to be able to deliver and bring all of those changes in. So that's a key ask as well. So lots of things up for grabs. What we've been very clear to do in our manifesto is have bullet points effectively as key asks, and we'll drill down into them with the candidates, with those who are newly elected, and this will, certainly for us as Sal, form the basis of our asks and our intentions in a new parliamentary session.
Definitely. I think one of the key points that you raised there is about clarity, right? And it's this idea that the politicians and policymakers haven't been as clear as the industry and the sector would like them to be, and perhaps they should be. And that's the thing about this document, is it's very clear, it's very direct, and it's set out in that accessible way, as I'm sure viewers and listeners will find out when they go to the website.
And we've said in all these podcasts, landlords are investors, and investors need confidence. So if we're going to continue to operate in the private rented sector, then we need to know that A, we're valued, we're needed, we're wanted. And these are the big questions that our politicians need to answer. And they need to create policies where they can deliver on their intentions. So the strategy is certainly key.
And I'm sure if there's any policymakers, politicians, or aspiring politicians who are watching this, we know we have a growing audience, and then several of them may be in our audience. And you're more than welcome to contact Sal, more than welcome to get in touch to discuss any of the points that are in here. I'm sure Sal's completely open to that kind of dialogue.
Yeah, as always.
All that contact information.
And we look forward to meeting the new elected members to the Scottish Parliament too. That'll be a big part of our work.
I'm sure all that contact information is available on the on ScottishLandlords.com. But again, we'll be hearing more about that in future weeks, I'm sure. But for now, John, I think it's time to bring in our guest.
Yeah, let's do that. So I'm delighted, as I mentioned earlier, to welcome Nigel. to the podcast today, and he's there on our screen. Hello, Nigel.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for coming along and taking a few minutes out of your busy day as well to talk about the work of Aspray and what Aspray does and how it can help landlords here in Scotland. Can I maybe start off, because of course many people maybe have never heard of Aspray, they don't know what you do. So they know there's many insurance companies out there selling insurance products, and that's important that landlords understand the variety of products that are available, but Aspray's doing something slightly different here. So where do you fit in the wider insurance marketplace?
So what we are, we're loss assessors, and what we do basically is hold the hand of customers in the relation of a property claim they make on their property, such, and we stand in the shoes of them, look after from day one, put cotton wool around them in relation to navigating all the steps for every part of an insurance claim they need to make under insurance policy, in simple terms.
So Nigel, tell us about some of the pitfalls that landlords come across when they come to making an insurance claim. So where did they get it wrong, or where did they find out that sadly their insurance isn't sufficient?
Yeah, the number one by a country mile is underinsurance. That is a main topic, and is very upsetting, obviously, at the end of the day, because whatever the percentage the insurance company or loss adjuster is confirming they're underinsured by will have to be a contribution from the customers or landlord themselves, which is always an upsetting event. And I would just to sort of example that a little bit, the worst case in the last 12 months that I've heard of was 40% underinsured on a £1.4 million flat in Chelsea. So you can imagine the landlord's dismay in relation to how much they're going to have to put in for a claim of a substantial amount, and very upsetting.
So what's the tip there to landlords who obviously have insurance products? Should they go and check that, or how do they check it now before even they need to make a claim?
Absolutely. Well, one thing is to make sure you are adequately insured. Do a review with your insurance broker, insurance company, and a simple task to do yourself. You can go on the RICS surveyor's thing and make sure all your properties are correctly insured to the value you've got on the insurance policy. And it is a very, very important thing to every time it comes to renew your portfolio or whatever. It is make sure it's the first thing you do to make sure every property you have owned is adequately insured, so you avoid the pitfalls of underinsurance, because it's just such a headache.
Okay, so look at the value for insurance, and often that's about reinstatement value. It's not actually the market value of the property. So I think we need to emphasize there is a difference between those two values.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say with the soaring sort of costs of building materials since COVID and et cetera, like over the last 4 or 5 years, people just got a bit I suppose confused with it all, and just to make sure you do the necessary check to avoid any headaches and potential financial outlay that's always upsetting. Anyway, it's so important to check you've got the right policy and all your properties are correctly insured for the right value.
And can they do that with their insurer? Can they just give their insurer a call and saying, listen, I'm unsure what the reinstatement value, for instance, is for my property. Can you guide me? Can you help me as to how to work out what the right figure for my property is? Would you advise them to do that?
Absolutely, yeah. Whether it's your insurance company direct or you deal with a broker, intermediary, whatever, just make sure you made a phone call, because it's then noted and you've got confirmation either in writing or on record that you've done that check for peace of mind for any future claims potentially. If the worst happens, you have to make a claim on any of your properties.
So if I was to make a claim, and I've done that a few times in my career as a landlord, it's not a pleasant experience. It is a stressful experience, because obviously perhaps you don't know what you should be claiming for or how much you should be claiming. And even just going through the whole administration of that can be a nightmare. But where do landlords go wrong? From your experience, Nigel, what can you share with us today that would allow us to understand that perhaps, avoid doing this, or make sure you're better prepared by doing this when you make a claim? What's your top tips there?
I think from my experience of the events I've done with the SAL and another sort of, like the NRLA, etc., as I've done road shows with the SAL at Edinburgh, but what you find is trying to get through the claim themselves, and when it becomes a problem, they then get us like Aspray involved, and sometimes it's too late because they've submitted quotations from multiple people. And the most important thing from our side is make sure we're instructed, like as a company from day one, that we can actually hand literally hold them from step one right way through to having the property reinstated. And don't do it yourself, because sometimes, unfortunately, you do come up against challenges that you're either not qualified for, or you've not got assistance or help around you. And dealing with people like us as a partner of the SAL is absolutely golden when you've got that as part of your membership.
Okay, so what you're really saying is, if I know I need to make a claim, really, ideally, I should be approaching you initially. I should be coming to you and saying, listen, Aspray, how can you help me here? I know I'm going to have to make a claim to my insurer. I've not phoned them yet, not contacted them yet, but can you help? Is that the stage that we should be making that call to Aspray?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and minute one, or from the site, you need to make a phone call. After the devastation, find a roof hanging down, or a flood, or a fire, whatever it is, because it's such a traumatic time in the event of any claim, and it's not the first thing you're going to think of. Oh, I need to make a claim because you're in shock. But at the end of the day, to make sure you've got the right people around you, and assistance and guidance that's there as being part of the SAL.
Okay, so you obviously have the experience of managing the claims and being able to obviously get the best from the insurer that you possibly can for that particular client. I can imagine lots of landlords listening or watching this will be thinking, yeah, but how much is this going to cost us? Because obviously Aspray is going to get involved, and it will be Aspray that will be looking for some sort of fee for you doing this on behalf of the landlord. So how much does it cost, and why should a landlord do this?
Yeah, there's no charge at all for our services from start to finish. As I say, it's a free service to all SAL members as part of their membership, and we look after the claim from start to finish, and there is no fees at all in relation to using our services, subject to ourselves using our own trade. We're fully qualified and vetted by ourselves at Aspray.
So the people doing the works to fix the problem would need to be your tradespeople. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, indeed.
And you operate all over the country, so regardless of where you are in Scotland as a landlord with your property, you would be able to provide the support that's required.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. You say we've done events in sort of Cardiff, and they've had properties in sort of North Wales. So yeah, we've got about 52 assessors nationwide now. England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. So yeah, it doesn't matter where the properties are, but we can cover all landlords for peace of mind.
And finally, Nigel, how can people access this service if they want to do that?
In relation to yourselves, obviously, you've got to go onto the membership page, and we're there as a dedicated partner, which we're proud to be. The last 3 years, obviously, at the Edinburgh, the stadium there, which is an amazing event, and look forward to again this year. But yeah, just go onto the website and access our details. It's a 24-hour, 365 days a year service. Doesn't matter, because leaks can happen any time of day or night, unfortunately, and the team are there to help any landlords in the event should the worst happen.
Nigel, thanks very much for taking the time to join us today and tell us a bit more about how Aspray could help landlords here in Scotland.
Indeed.
Thank you, Nigel.
Thanks, Nigel.
Thank you for the invite.
Well, another brilliant interview, and thanks very much to Nigel for being part of the show with us today. Lots to think about and lots to discuss. So, John, in terms of like the big takeaway from what we just heard from Nigel, what would you say should be that big takeaway for our listeners?
I think it highlights that insurance is a minefield, basically. So we all know we need to have insurance. And the big question is it adequate insurance? There's so many different products out there. Have we got the right policy cover? I think that's the number one takeaway. Check that you're covered for everything that you need to be covered for. At the top of the interview, Nigel was talking there about being potentially underinsured. So have a look at exactly what the value of your insurance is. So seek advice from your insurance company, a local surveyor. That's another option there for you as well too. So make sure that the value is correct so that you're not underinsured. And then, of course, look at the policy wording. So make sure that you're covered for every eventuality. Nigel was alluding to the other, some people, I'm afraid, the insurance is just not going to cover them. But more than that, let's assume you've got the right policy, the right value. It's still a stressful process. And we're not, unless we're doing it all the time, we tend not to be experienced in making insurance claims, whereas this company can do it. And if they can take the hassle away from making that claim by doing it on your behalf, then, you know, that might well be something you're interested in doing. Importantly, for us as landlords, we don't like to pay extra for anything, but it's a free service. So, but they will be using their own tradespeople to carry out the work. So I think at the very least, if people are interested, it's good to know there's a company out there that can manage the claim on your behalf and deal with the insurance company and the tradespeople and everything. You don't need to worry about that. So it could be worth a call. And of course, Aspray does work in partnership with SAL. If you're a member of SAL, you can access them through the discounts and suppliers page of the SAL website, scottishlandlords.com. If you're not a member of SAL, obviously we would want you to become a member, then of course you can approach Aspray direct. So it's another service that's out there that landlords might not know about, and that's why we wanted to highlight it today in the podcast.
Also, if you're not a member of SAL and you're watching this podcast, what are you waiting for? You know, membership forms are right there. I'm interested in this point about stress and the stress that is involved in being or can be involved in being a landlord. Now, is there any way that SAL can help with landlords who might be feeling the pressure of the job and of the industry and of the way things are going? Is there anything that SAL offers to help
in
landlords?
general?
Yeah,
Yeah.
more generally.
Yeah, I think, you know, the important takeaway really, I think, from all of our podcasts is that being a landlord is not easy. There's many pitfalls, and we often talk about, you know, what are the top tips that we can give to landlords. It's a changing, developing sector. Being a landlord now is very different to what it was 20, 30 years ago. It's certainly much more involved, and it's not a passive income anymore for any landlord. So you do need to keep up to date with changes in legislation. And obviously you need somebody, I think, at the end of a phone to be able to hold your hand through the process of being a landlord and that journey. Nigel in the interview there was saying, well, that's what Aspray does when it comes to insurance claims. But what about other aspects of lettings businesses? How can we help? So certainly we have our helpline that's available during the day, Monday to Friday. So on any aspect of landlord-tenant relations. So give us a call. Well, there is a resource, as well as, of course, we have many resources available online to download as well too. So yes, I think we are an essential resource, and certainly our members feel that way, and we're there to support you. And I think we all need that helping hand from time to time to guide us through the maze of legislation and the ever-changing requirements of being a landlord in Scotland.
Indeed, and well, thank you very much for that, John, and again, once again to our guest. And with that, another episode of Landlord Voice comes to an end. If you've enjoyed this or any of our other episodes, please feel free to like, subscribe, share, leave some comments. It really helps us out. It takes a lot of effort to put these shows together, and you know they're really all that feedback is really valuable to us. It just remains to say, on behalf of myself, Alan Grant, and John Blackwood, we'll see you next time.
Bye for now.
Landlord Voice is a podcast by the Scottish Association of Landlords, produced in partnership with Alan Grant Communications and Mallard Productions. All footage and music was used with permission. Questions, comments, suggestions, or other feedback should be sent to alan@alangrantcommunications.com.